Jessie here. This is Garden Variety Knits, and I hope you're doing really well today. If you are new here, then I'm really glad you found me, and I hope you enjoy my discussion about, knitting things. If you are coming back, then thank you so much for returning, and it's really nice to have you again. For the new ones, this is very standard knitting channel content, so I will be going through. Today I've got a couple of finished objects from the same skein of yarn, like 3 whips, and just some plans, some yarn that I acquired that I really want to talk about, and yeah, I think that's basically it. I'm not particularly rigid with my structure, but it's pretty standard stuff. Since my last video, I've been doing a fair amount of knitting, and I also have been able to test out a couple of my most recent finished objects because the weather has finally turned summery. I had my first swim in a river yesterday, and that was really good. The water was still a bit cold, but the weather's kind of supporting that sort of activity now. And my most recent finished objects are both kind of crop top, like tank top things. I am wearing one. And it's just been good to finally give them a bit of a test run in hot weather. And so far so good. I would say that they're probably just not enough fabric that they would overheat me, even if they were like pure wool, but I've also found that they're not particularly itchy, and yeah, so far, like thumbs up in terms of summer yarn selection. Okay, so we'll start straight away with what I'm wearing. This is version 2 of my split front ribbed tank top, crop top thing. So if you've been around, you'll know what I mean. I'll put in some footage or photos, probably photos, that I took of this, but basically I did what I said I would. Yeah, so this is knit on 3mm needles, and it is in the yarn Fibre Co Meadow, which is a 40% merino, 25% baby llama, so that's 65% kind of woolly wool, but then 20% silk and 15% linen, which is why I was like, maybe. It's definitely not super cooling though, like it's definitely wool, but the merino, like it's very soft, so I think it's kind of an okay trade-off. The main thing is, you don't want like prickly rustic wool next to your skin in the summer, I think, and this is fine just because it's not a lot of fabric. So I think last time I was talking about swatching for this because I had version 1, which I will put up on screen, and that one I had done in just pure 1x1 ribbing, and it had looked super sloppy because a lot of this is done flat because you have to do all of the kind of triangles. I did it top down, but it's like each triangle and then join in the round briefly, but then I was doing some short rows for the bust, so that's flat, and then I split like very soon after I did it was like 1 inch in the round, and then then you're knitting flat again. So it was very, very good at showing off the weaknesses in 1x1 ribbing, and that means that I was a little bit disappointed in kind of what it looked like. But then I had a stroke of, I called it genius, but you could just say insight. And I realized that I could probably avoid, because like the reason the knitting flat is bad is because the column of stitches that you see on the outside of the ribbing get pulled, like the yarn gets pulled out of them in a different direction in whichever way you're knitting. And so I decided I would just slip those stitches on the wrong side, and then I got these gorgeous kind of slip stitch columns on the outside of the ribbing, and they just look kind of plump and nice and very even. So that was absolutely worked as intended. Other than that, the other modifications from my first version is that because I was on 3mm needles, I think I used 2mm for the last top. My gauge was bigger, so I had to kind of do some adjustments for that anyway. But because of the bigger gauge, I left, I think, roughly the same number of cast on stitches in the middle front because that had been a bit narrow for my liking previously. And then for the underarm, I didn't cast on any stitches, so I had increased both sides, and then I just joined. Maybe I cast on one stitch just to make the ribbing like pattern match up. Yeah, and I used the same technique that I did last one, where I had 3 stitches of double knitting as the selvage. But I will say that I think that worked better with the 1x1 rib, because the gauge of the slipped stitch rib, basically this ended up feeling looser. I don't know why. I guess that would mean the rest of the fabric is like proportionally tighter. I guess that kind of makes sense, because when you slip stitches, maybe that pulls it in a little bit. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, so I do think that the edging didn't end up quite as neat, although it mostly blocked out. And then I also got that thing that I think I've heard a few people mention happens, where when I was knitting flat, the selvage on one side looked a lot neater than on the other side. I've heard that's partly because you kind of pull yarn through as you're going, and on one side you keep pulling, but on the other side it just kind of like it reaches a dead end and you've just got some loose yarn there. So I tried quite hard not to pull yarn through my stitches, as you know, like to kind of have slack traveling with me. I'll link some videos below that explain this far better than I could. What other challenges did I meet with this? Yeah, I was a bit worried because, yeah, the first one I found that the straps sat too far in, like this. And with this one I tried, yeah, to correct that by having no underarm cast on and a wider front. For a little while, I think just before blocking maybe, I thought it was going to be too wide, but I think it's actually pretty good. I do have this problem where I feel like the straps do just slide down my shoulders, but I think that's just because I've sloped. Yeah, they're not like nice and flat, and it's fine. It's just like when I'm in motion, it doesn't bug me too much. It's just one of those things that like every time I take a picture, I'm like, oh, it's kind of out of place again. And then when I got to the end, I'll put in a picture. I cast off the bottom edge, which I did some double knitting and then sew and bind off. So it kind of has like this little detail of like kind of a strip of double knitting. I'm not quite sure what was different. I think it was just different from my previous version. I knit a bit longer past the split, and I ended up with these funny points on either side of the split, which makes sense because I've been doing decreases down the side to do some shaping, like waist shaping. And so if you think about the shape of the fabric, that kind of created this angle on one side, and then that kind of pulled the point of the split, and the split itself was kind of diagonally going outward because that's just like how they were being pulled. Anyway, the picture's probably a better indicator of what happened, but I had to, yeah, it was really frustrating because I was like, yes, I'm finished, I've bound off, and then I tried it on and I was like, this looks like a weird waistcoat. And so I ripped back, I think, a fair bit, like maybe half of what I'd done under the arms, and then I re-knit, but I used short rows, so I didn't go all the way to the split, and I just kind of moved outwards, and so I was basically creating a diagonal. It's a bit hard to explain, but it looked fine after I did it, and so yeah, and I mostly chose that method just by kind of folding the points that I didn't like and seeing what it looked like if it was folded, and that kind of made a kind of a roughly straight line across the front. So I was like, well, I can achieve that with short rows. So actually binding off the bottom wasn't my last step. What I had done for the straps is that I had done a provisional cast on the one side, and then the other side I'd cast on as normal, and I was planning to like graft them together. But I did it provisionally. It didn't make a difference in the end. I was thinking that I could graft the live stitches, but then if I needed to, I would be able to rip back some. But with a provisional cast on, you can't actually rip particularly easily. So the straps were like too long. They were quite a lot too long, like 2 inches. Even with a provisional cast on, I couldn't knit further because it would end up with like a jog in the rib pattern. I intentionally erred on the longer side, but 2 inches was more than I was anticipating it would be. But yeah, so I ended up cutting just through the straps and then like picking up some live stitches and then grafting that. And the grafting I've seen that you can graft ribbing by basically almost treating it as double knitting. So you graft the knit stitches on one side and then you go around the back and you graft what looks like knit stitches but were the right side purl stitches on the back, which seems like a good idea, but mine ended up quite twisted. I will put in a close-up photo. And I don't know if that was also because of the way the provisional cast on is actually kind of twisty. I'm not totally sure. Maybe I would have been better to just have 2 cast on edges or like cast off my stitches that I had ended up with and then graft just the two ends together. It really doesn't bug me. It's not the sort of detail that it actually sits kind of right by my shoulder. I thought it was going to sit quite far down my back, but it's up here. So I really don't think people are going to see it. I think in the end, the solution for this kind of a garment is probably to knit it bottom up, because then your straps can be grafted with like a 3-needle bind off or whatever you choose, but you actually can rip back length as they stretch over time. Because this is such high wool content, I'm not super worried about it stretching out more, but it could, and it's not I-cord, I guess, but it definitely could. And if I have to adjust it, it's going to be a real pain. Like, this is a kind of an eternal struggle with knitted tank tops, is that you have to gauge the strap length, and it might be something you want to adjust later. And I think it's really nice to be able to undo a little bit and then redo whatever it was that you did. And yeah, I just don't think that knitting top down is the way to make that easy. And with this particular pattern, like with some you can do a provisional cast on and it'll work to a certain degree. But yeah, I don't really know what the answer is there. If anyone has any good suggestions for ways to make it adjustable-ish, let me know. I mean, the other thing you can do is just get around the problem by having like the tie straps, or like, that you do in a little bow, or yeah, I guess just make it too short intentionally and anticipate it'll stretch out. I don't know. None of those seem super appealing to me in terms of a universal solution. So that was kind of my actual final hurdle with this, was getting my straps to sit right. I think I've nailed it now though, and I don't think I'm gonna need to shorten it. So, fingers crossed, touch wood. But once that was done and once I blocked it, I'm pretty happy with it, honestly. I feel like the style of this, so I first saw the inspiration for this on the Thanks I Made It channel by Emma, and as I mentioned at the time, I was immediately like, oh, that's so cute, I want it. And I think I still love it, even after making 2. I feel like this is the danger with knitting in general though, is that you kind of see something, you're inspired, and then you spend like weeks of your life on it, and then you have to just somehow maintain that enthusiasm the whole time. And sometimes it just makes you want it more, and sometimes you're like, oh, is this even what I want in life? So I had a couple of moments like that, but just because it is like a slightly, I don't know, like out there fashion item, I guess, and I'm normally pretty plain in my dressing, and it kind of feels quite like teenagery and, I don't know, kind of trendy and young as well, but I never had the confidence to wear anything like this when I was a teenager, so I don't see why I shouldn't do it now, if I want to. Yeah, so I quite like, I've got like these really wide leg jeans, and if I put this on with that, I feel like I'm straight out of the 90s, but in a good way. Yeah, I mean, that's back in now, right? So I finished it, I've worn it out a few times. So I guess the real issue is I don't know if there's enough things I do in life that are, fun. Although going swimming is a really good one. So like going out, into town and getting a nice coffee and then going for a swim. Like if I'm not wearing my togs the whole time, then it's quite nice to have like a cute little summery outfit to wear. So yeah, there's opportunities to wear it for sure. But yeah, overall, thumbs up from me. One thing, so I mentioned that I cut like 2 inches of strap off each one, and then I think I must have had a moment of mild, I don't know, it was stupid, but I threw them out because I was just like, done. I'm not going to be able to do anything with the remainder of the yarn. And then I weighed my leftovers, and I think in total, including my swatch, I had like 36 7 grams of yarn or something out of 100 gram skein. Yeah, and I was like, maybe I can squeak a bralette out of this. So finished object number 2, that's what I did. I made this, which is the Ripple Bralette by Jessie May Designs. And it's super cute. I actually had never knit this pattern before, so I'm happy I have it because it feels like such a classic, and it feels like something that I might make like a couple of other kind of singlet style things, just to go under winter garments, or maybe like, you know, to be a bit extra and have like a matching one for like a cardigan. I guess it would have to be a fingering weight cardigan, but yeah, you know, something like that. I guess that's possible if you have like fingering mohair in a cardigan and then fingering weight like top underneath. And so yeah, I ended up using all my leftovers, and I really wish that I had kept like that extra like 2 inches from each strap, because I think that would have been just an extra little bit of yarn that would have made me feel a bit better about everything. Although I guess it's really not that much. So yeah, so this was very much a knit where the story was all about yarn chicken. I'm glad it was a quick knit because, and tell me if this is a me thing or if it's a universal experience, but I ended up just like, because I knew I was playing yarn chicken and I was, you know, weighing how much it was taking me to like do 1 inch, and then I just kept rechecking the numbers, and basically I kind of ended up knitting obsessively until it was finished because I just wanted to know whether I was going to be able to do it or if I was going to have to do, I don't know. So I kind of knit this initial band a bit wider because I just liked the look of it as kind of more of a bralette, less of like a bra. I don't know. I feel like that long line kind of under the bust is like a slight, like it just turns it a little bit more into like a crop top. But I was quite ambitious with how much I knit there, and then I ended up having to shorten kind of the main body and the bit just underneath where the straps join at the back. And then I ended up with 3 grams of yarn left over. So I don't know how much extra length that would have given me in the body, but the straps did take more yarn than I actually anticipated. So although that's one thing I did, is that, so you kind of cast off except for some live stitches at the back to graft your straps onto, and I ended up leaving only 4 stitches there just in case I wanted to do a 4-stitch I-cord instead of a 6-stitch I-cord. So I could have saved quite a lot of yarn on the straps if I'd wanted to do 4 stitches, but I'm glad I, you know, ended up with enough to do the 6-stitch, and the length's fine. Like it's not bad. It just, if I have a ton of yarn in the future, I will make it a bit longer. That's all. So I think I knit this in, I don't know, like 4 days, maybe less. Just because, I was really worried about running out of yarn, and I just really wanted to find out if I would. And so, it was definitely bordering on obsession. So I knit this in the recommended needle size, which is 2.75 for this bottom band here and 3.5 for the rest. And I knit a size like in between small and medium, which meant that I added half the stitch gap. But I realized later why it was graded with the gaps that it had. Basically, the front half is designed to start and end with a rib, so this is 3x3 rib, so with knit columns, and then it's designed so that the center column is meant to be a purl column, and by adding the number of stitches I did, I changed that, I mucked it up. So it's meant to be that you kind of have this purl column and then it gets kind of decreased out really quickly, and then you have 2 knit columns that then just run up the side of the triangle. I had to end up kind of improvising. I had to decrease out these 2 purl columns and then let this knit column be the one that runs up. It's fine. It just isn't as it was, it's designed well. I ruined that and made it design, I made it slightly less like beautifully detailed, but it fits me, which is nice. So And I was a bit scared of the amount of negative ease that the small would have created. Yeah, it might have been okay, but not totally sure. My gauge, so yeah, everything's in the round up until these triangles for the front, and I think my pearls are really loose, and it just created a much looser gauge, like visibly looser on the blocking boards, for example. Oh, and the other thing is, yeah, then for the second triangle, I was knitting with my swatch for this thing that I ended up frogging. And yeah, so I was knitting with frogged yarn, which I hadn't straightened out. And overall, like knitting ribbed flat, it just looked so messy. And I have a picture of it before blocking, and it was just the most amazing blocking transformation because I did pin it out quite like nicely for the blocking. And yeah, best blocking transformation I've had so far, I think. Yeah, for like a ribbed thing, very fun. It didn't look that bad on pre-blocking, but definitely looks better now. Yeah, and I think that's basically all there is. But yeah, it's really nice. I wore this yesterday just around town after I had my swim. It was really hot, so I had a t-shirt that I'd been wearing over it, and then I didn't put the t-shirt back on after I'd been swimming because, yeah, and it felt fine. It felt good in terms of kind of support and coverage, and yeah, I don't know, I really like it. Again, this color I'm really enjoying, so it's good. I've got 2 items in it. I don't know 100% that I would have planned it this way to have 2 crop tops that are kind of similar, but I guess this one genuinely can be a bralette, like under things in the winter as well. So yeah, practical. Yeah, and I'm just happy I used the leftovers because I can't really think what else I'd have done with this quantity of yarn. Yeah, I would need like a scrappy project, I think. So yeah, it's nice to just get a full garment from it instead. Okay, so I think that's all of my finished objects. And before I jump into whips, I'm going to just talk about the next most exciting thing because this happened, and then I, you know, as well as being delighted, I also immediately wanted to brag about it. So here's a little bit of a brag. So my boyfriend was out hiking. He's been doing a lot of kind of just exploring in our, I mean, neighborhood's not quite right, region, because I don't know, he can go quite far, honestly. And also you don't have to go far for it to just be like stunning Swiss countryside, you know, cows in fields, little forests, like views of the Alps, all that sort of beautiful, ridiculous things. So he was out hiking and he came back and he said that he had found a adorable little, like, this is really common in Switzerland, maybe all through Europe. But yeah, you have like just little wooden kind of cupboards, I guess, that have local produce. So I've seen honey, I've got a beeswax candle out in the lounge that I bought from one. You can get like, yeah, fruit. I bought like apples, I bought like jams, like I got a quince jam once. And often it'll just be like a little cash box that you can put money in, or they might even have a QR code and you can pay digitally, which this one did. And anyway, he found this cupboard of local produce, and as I'm sure you've already guessed, it was yarn. So this is, I think, 100% alpaca from the local alpacas. I don't know if he saw them. I think he said he might have, but I mean, it's got pictures of them on it. Yeah, just alpacas from like within walking distance of my house. So there were only these 2 balls left, apparently. Well, yeah, I guess he didn't have to make any decisions. And I don't know how long it'll be, because it's 50 grams each. It looks pretty thick, like maybe worsted or an Aran weight. I don't really know. Does anyone find that wraps per inch is like a genuinely useful measure? Anyway, I think I'm hoping, but maybe it's ambitious. I was hoping that I might have enough for like a colorwork hat. Even if I end up just making like a colorwork square, like I am just so stoked. But yeah, if anyone has any suggestions, maybe I could make like a teeny little neck scarf or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I just know that I love it, and it is actually incredibly soft. It also looks quite loosely spun, which makes me wonder if it was done by hand, or like would a farm ever have a spinning machine like that's autonomous, or would it always be done like with a person involved? I know nothing about spinning. I kind of just imagine that there's industrial spinning, which is like a huge thing that wouldn't make sense for a farmer, and then like hand spinning. Someone inform me, please, what like a local farmer is most likely to have done. But yeah, anyway, it's beautiful. The colors are beautiful. I love them together. I love that it was local. I love that my boyfriend found it on the side of a path, and that he, you know, instantly thought of me and got me some. So yeah, very happy about that. And also, if it isn't enough to make something, it's possible that I could go back and get more, and then maybe I could see if there's like one other slightly different color and make like a 3-color work. Or I mean, I think it's just undyed, so I don't know whether dye lots, maybe more like which animal it came from will determine the color. So I could either look for a match or something sufficiently different to do like 3 colors. Yeah. Okay, so that is a little acquisition that I'll pop in before the whips. But yeah, I'll move on to my works in progress. So my first work in progress is one that I haven't been working on in a hot minute, because it was the t-shirt that I cast on for my trip to Italy. And then, if you were here, you will remember that I left the yarn in my hotel room in the drawer, and only realized when I was at the airport. It was like half an hour before boarding. So that was a mix-up, and I would encourage you not to leave things in hotels. It was a pain. More importantly, maybe, than the 2 balls of drops Belle and the, you know, handful of needle cables that I left there, was the key to my house, which would have been a massive pain to lose. And after a few weeks of kind of having to I was messaging the hotel, and they had my stuff and they'd sent me a picture of it, I think in the last time I filmed, but they just didn't actually post it for a little while. But finally it arrived. So I have my house key, that's good. But also I have been reunited with the second 2 balls of drops Belle that I need to finish my t-shirt. So I picked this back up, probably easiest to hold it from the top. Yeah, it's not really looking like all that much, but I have split for sleeves, or like split for the front and back. Yeah, it's going fine. So with this one, I'm knitting it on 4mm needles, which is not what was recommended. So the recommended needle size is 3.5. No, sorry, 3.75. And I had only packed 4mm needles for this trip. So I was knitting, and I'm really not sure quite what happened. I cast on too many stitches to start, like way too many. And then when I was deciding how much to drop down, I kind of just sized it around my body, what I'd originally knit, and then, you know, worked out how many stitches I wanted to remove. And that meant that I ended up casting on for the extra small size. But then, since doing that, I started knitting quite a lot tighter, because I was like, oh, my gauge is actually quite far off. And since then, I measured my gauge before, and it's actually on gauge now. Although this is unblocked, and it is a purely plant yarn, so it's probably going to stretch out and not kind of rebound. So this fits around me, like it's fine on me, but what I'm mostly worried about is the shoulders. I'm basically just concerned that it's going to do that thing where like the sleeve cap kind of rides up. Yeah, I feel like having a sleeve cap that's like here is kind of like the baby t-shirt sort of, I don't know what it's called, baby tee, baby doll, I mean baby doll's different. Anyway, you know, that kind of look where the sleeves are like super fitted and your shoulders really like almost come out past the shoulder seam. But that's not really what I want, and I'm worried that it'll be like too much. Like, here's the actual live stitches that I have. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know whether I could increase at all. I've been trying to imagine it, like, can you put increases across the front of your shoulder or across the back to put the shoulder seam like slightly out? It feels like you wouldn't want to do it at the top because then you might get a point. But if you do it like here, would that work? It feels wrong, but it makes it, yeah, I kind of wonder, is this something that you can do if you have a like wider shoulders than you have like bust circumference and you want a negative ease garment? Yeah, because that's the other thing, is that this is designed to have like 0 to 4 inches of negative ease. And I think actually I have like 8 inches of negative ease right now, which looks fine. And like I say, it might still block bigger. But I just feel like I'm not gonna have enough stitches across my shoulder seams. So if you have advice for me, please let me know, because I'm not working on this particularly fast. I've got some other projects that I'll probably be working on. So yeah, your advice will probably come in time. So please let me know what you would do. The other thing that is slightly annoying, although less annoying once I discovered that I'm completely on gauge, is that I just don't love, and you kind of don't know ahead of time whether this is going to be the case, but I don't love when a design has lengths specified for, you know, like for the front and back panels in this case, but then just a set number of stitches that you pick up in the arm instead of any sort of pickup rate, because I can deal with having too many or too few sleeve stitches fine, like A, because I don't have a particularly set idea of how much ease I want in a sleeve, and B, because I could probably adjust, but I don't want to have the wrong pickup rate and then have that like pucker the sleeve hole or like stretch out the sleeve stitches super much. So yeah, I kind of wish that I've ended up back calculating from the row gauge stated in the pattern how many stitches, how many rows, rather, you're picking up the intended number of stitches from, so I could like reverse engineer a pickup rate, but it's just slightly annoying because personally I'd rather just know what the rate is and then I can adjust everything else. I will say that like it's quite a thick, it's a dense gauge and it's DK yarn. I'm not totally sure how practical this will be as a summer garment, like maybe more of a spring autumn sort of a thing, or like inside at work in an office. It's a bit cropped, but I think with high-waisted enough pants it would be completely fine. Anyway, I think my overall sentiment with this is just that I'm happy to be making progress on it again and to not just have it sitting in my like whip basket as a sad, you know, unfinished object in stasis. I'm going to really, really briefly mention my socks, which are the Mountain Walk socks by Florence Miller, just because I'm actually making some progress. I've done a heel turn. I'm like probably most of the way through a foot. So I'm pretty excited to finish one of these off and block it and just have it look pretty. I will say that, yeah, I don't know. I think that the cabling, it's pretty. It just adds this tiny barrier to me picking these up because I'm like, oh, am I going to be on a cable row soon? Which is so dumb because it's, especially now, I'm just stocking it across the bottom. So I only have to do 5 cables every 4 rows. So it's not exactly a big burden, but yeah. Anyway, that's those. And now we've got 2 more whips. Let's start with the most exciting. So the most exciting one, I have nothing to show you except for a swatch because this is my progress. I am casting on. I'm actually trying to do a cabled cast on because this is one where I think like you don't do any ribbing or anything. It just kind of goes straight into pattern, and the like bottom cast on edge is a little bit of a detail, and I'm hoping if I do something like with a bit more of like a braid sort of a edge, it might look quite pretty. But maybe, I don't know if this is gonna work. I find it actually quite hard to get a cabled cast on like super even because like how much you tighten the stitch determines the space between the stitches as well. Whereas with the long tail cast on, I've gotten pretty good at making consistent distance between them. Anyway, yeah, if you have a favorite cast on to make like a pretty braided edge or something, you know, that looks kind of like, just like a really standard cast off, honestly, let me know. So this is, I'll tell you what this is. This is a test knit, and it's my first test knit, and I know that test knitting is not like a universally loved experience or anything. So I had mixed feelings about whether I wanted to do test knitting, but I still do because it feels like a great motivation to do a project, and you kind of have a time frame and there's other people hopefully doing it as well. I think I just wanted to give it a go. I've also heard that sometimes it can be quite a nice community activity, like you'll have like a group chat. It turns out that there is no group chat for this particular test knit, so I'm a bit disappointed, but that's okay. It's not going to be a very long project, so I don't think that I'm particularly concerned. But yeah, okay, so this is a test knit and it's for Park and Knit, or Park Williams, and there were actually 2 testicles at the same time. One was for a camisole and one was for a sweater, both using the same lace pattern. I signed up for the camisole and I have been sent it and I have swatched. So this is the lace pattern. So it's actually mega easy. It's 7-stitch lace repeat and it's only 4 rows, and 2 of the rows are plain knits. So it's like quite achievable to memorize it, and also just, you know, like nice and quick and like very Moorish, because yeah, 4 rows, and yeah, at least in the gauge swatch, we'll see what it's like for doing like the full body. I have 2 swatches. One was in the recommended needle size, which is this one, and this one was one size like 0.5 mils down. But I like this one better, which is good because it also is the one that meets gauge. So I think I'm surprised that yeah, my one in the recommended one was so loose, because I felt like even on this one, the smaller, I felt like I was knitting fairly tightly, not tightly, but like, you know, with the needle. My theory is that the yarn, which is, I'll get to in a second, but it's quite like stiff. So I think maybe it has a certain amount of like, it's like not particularly pliable. And so I wonder if it's making, like adding a bit of looseness just by being a bit like wiry. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, so the yarn that I've chosen is Rerum Natura Antigone, and I am full of doubt about this, because not about the yarn, I really want to use the yarn, and not really about, I don't know, it definitely hits gauge, and it looks pretty, but I'm kind of worried, like it feels a bit, I guess stiff, but I do believe that it will soften even more with like repeated washes, and I might even put it like through the dryer or something once it's finished. But yeah, I'm just not totally sure. Like, so the recommended yarn is a mix of cotton, silk, linen, alpaca, which sounds, I guess the silk and the cotton would make it a bit softer, and the alpaca actually. I guess I don't really know what the intended fabric is, and because this is also meant to have negative ease, so it's not meant to drape, I guess, all that much. I wouldn't normally reach for linen for, or like, you know, any plant yarn for a negative ease garment, but since it's lace, I figured that that's kind of where the stretch and give comes from. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to see, but I'm not super worried. I know that linen, yeah, I guess the main thing I'm worried about is that it'll look like board-like, or like also that the lace won't be super pretty, because yeah, I guess because the stitches don't like fold on themselves enough. Does that make sense? But I think over time it should just achieve everything I want, because everything I've heard about linen is that it softens with wear, and so I really think it should be fine. And it's a really quick knit as well, so it's possible that I can just like knit it again if I am not happy with the result. Yeah, so the one other consideration for this is because it's like a super open lace camisole, I'm not sure what to wear under it. Like, you can wear just a nude bra, which would be fine, but maybe in my mind it's not like super style. I don't know, like my nude bras are not ones I want to like show off. They're just like meant to blend in under like slightly transparent things, not like fully transparent things. So I was tossing up like either a matching bralette in like a very similar color, but I would want it to be, this is going to be a scoop neck kind of tank camisole, so I don't know of any that kind of match that silhouette. But I was also tossing up like maybe a slightly different colored like bandeau style bra thing, but I don't know whether a knitted bandeau would have enough elasticity. Like bandeaus are hard in the best of times, and yeah, I just don't know if it would work without like actual elastic, although I guess you could make one and put actual elastic in it. Yeah, anyway, I thought that might be a cute look, like completely see-through tank top with like a bandeau, because like the other thing I was considering that you could wear it with is like a bikini top, or like you could knit something that was in the style of like a, you know, with like a tie back. But yeah, if you have any patterns or recommendations for like something that would be a cute undergarment for a lace scoop neck tank, let me know, and I will ask again once I have like more of a tank top to show as well. Cool. And that's, I mean, I'll update you on the progress. I don't know if I mentioned the name. It's the Crumpet Camisole, so it's meant to be like a cute lacy thing for drinking tea and eating crumpets. Okay, and I have one last whip, which I will change. Okay, and here's my final work in progress, which is my, it's the Belle Notte blouse, light, by Emilie. I'm gonna put her name on screen because I can never pronounce it and I can't remember it. But she's Queer Knits on Instagram. And this one, honestly, it looks cuter than I remembered. So I think last time I had bound off the body, but it was too short. So I went back and I knit a bit longer, and I think it's a good length now. And I also blocked it since last time, and I was, oh yeah, last time I think I was worried about the neckline. I'd only had half of it and I was worried it would pull in too much. But after a block, I would say I'm pretty happy with it. It's meant to be reversible. It might be a bit too tight on the reverse side, but honestly it looks kind of okay. I would say that with this, the sizing is good all round, except that I think my row gauge is too tight, which means that my underarm is honestly like too, yeah, it's too snug. So I think the sleeve diameter is actually going to be fine. I just think that it's like being pulled into the like armpits too much, which I don't love. But like, yeah, maybe I just didn't knit the shoulders wide enough as well. No, I think it really is just the diameter. Like even if I had more fabric outwards, I think it's just that the circumference with the bound, like the cast on stitches under the arm, is too tight. And once it's all knitting, which has much more stretch, that's going to be fine. But yeah, maybe I should have bound on a bit looser, actually. I don't know if there's a fix for that once I've already gone and knit all the way down. Yeah, so with this one, I think, honestly, it's too hot even to just be wearing this right now. So that's a sign that it's probably going to be like an autumn, like winter sort of a garment. It's pretty cute, but I think that I'm already more excited about the idea of having like a version 2 of this where I size up everything and knit it in like a plain color than I am about this one. This is almost purely about like knitting up this hand dyed that I bought and just having something, but I'm kind of becoming doubtful that it's going to be something I reach for very much, which is a shame. Like, but I don't know that I can make it into something that's more my style. My other thought for this yarn was to hold it together with like a mohair to kind of soften everything up and maybe make something like the famous Lento or the Cognac pullover sweater, which both have quite a loose gauge but use fingering and mohair, because yeah, maybe like a positive ease garment would be more my style for this. So maybe I'll knit this and then just repurpose the yarn one day. The other thing I'm a bit concerned about is that I'm pretty sure I'm going to have leftovers. I have this much left and I need to knit 2 sleeves. I don't know, maybe it's not going to be tons left over, but I kind of don't know what I would do with any amount. But yeah, maybe fingering weight yarn is not something to worry about too much. Like maybe one day I'll have enough scraps that I can use it for something. Although, I don't know, my scraps never look particularly cohesive, or yeah, I don't tend to keep a lot of them around. Like, I'm pretty good at playing yarn chicken to the point where my scraps are not like large. Anyway, that's the update on this one. It's really very little. The blocking was magic. It made it feel like it's pretty, like it can work, but I just don't like having fabric like close up in my armpit. So I think that might be just a comfort issue for wearing this, even if it looks kind of overall pretty cute. I think that's all I have to say about it, really. Yeah, I guess I've just lost steam. I'm not like really knitting on it. I think that for me, so then we can segue straight into plans, which is that I think I will probably be just prioritizing this Crumpet Camisole and like working on that test knit pretty much until it's done. And after that, I might honestly cast on something new and just kind of leave these whips to just chill. Except for the Mio Mighty, I think I will work on a little bit, especially if I come up with some sort of solution for the shoulders. But even if I just want to knit it to see whether or not it's going to fit, and if post-blocking everything looks good, which it might, because you never know. Blocking's pretty magic. So yeah, I'll probably get that finished up, but I might cast something new on, and I might try and experiment with a bit more pure linen, because I am enjoying that. Although also, when I went to the yarn store to buy that linen yarn, I also saw the display of Knitting for Olive pure silk, and that's pretty special. Like it seems very nice. I think I might also look for some patterns to design for that and make something, because yeah, I just kind of, I like it very much appeals to me, and their colors are so pretty. Yeah, so I think that's where I'm at for plans. Yeah, so I guess outside knitting, most recently, I think a couple weeks ago now, I did like a little concert with some friends. We've been practicing the Brahms clarinet quintet, and I've just been playing the second violin part, and it's been really fun because we started off and I was like, I don't know if we can play this, and then we all practiced and got better, and then yeah, it wasn't perfect, but like it feels like it actually is music now, which I don't know, if you play music you might understand that sometimes something that can be hypothetically musical can be quite unmusical to start off. And then I guess the other main thing that I have been doing is just, yeah, like enjoying the slightly better weather. My boyfriend and I went on a ridiculously long hike on Sunday. It was, I think, 37 kilometers or something in the end. Like we were out there for like 10 hours. I think we caught the last train home. So yeah, that left me with dead legs for a few days. I guess I've been doing a bit more music recently and just a normal amount of hiking and knitting and other things. Anyway, I hope that you're enjoying all of your activities and life and everything's going well for you. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out. I've been kind of saving things up that I was really excited to share, so I hope that this had something for you. Yeah, and I will be excited to show you progress from all of this stuff in the next one. Catch you soon. Bye!